No one inside the Valencia paddock expected a shock that big, certainly not Yamaha. During what was supposed to be a quiet, carefully controlled prototype shakedown, one rider completely altered the mood of an entire factory. Toprak Razgatlıoğlu climbed aboard Yamaha's brand new V4 engine for the first time, and within a matter of hours, the garage atmosphere shifted from cautious optimism to breathless disbelief. Telemetry screens lit up, engineers whispered, and even Valentino Rossi, who rarely gives dramatic statements these days, found himself stunned by what he witnessed. But the moment that changed everything wasn't just the lap time. It was the unexpected encounter that followed, one that involved the architect of Ducati's modern dominance. And from that point forward, nothing about Yamaha's future would ever look the same. Behind Toprak's relaxed posture that morning, the tension inside Yamaha was already building. This wasn't simply another test. It was the first official step into the 2026 MotoGP revolution, a shift from the beloved crossplane inline-4 to a more aggressive V4 design. For Yamaha, this project carried enormous weight. Years of fatting acceleration, weak top speed, and an outdated engine philosophy had forced the Japanese giant to make a move few thought they would ever make. And now, climbing onto the prototype for the very first time, Toprak represented something Yamaha desperately needed: a reset button. But the early laps didn't calm anyone's nerves. Observers saw chaos, missed braking points, wild corner entry moments, electronics flashing aggressively across the dashboard. The V4's explosive character caught Toprak by surprise more than once, and the Yamaha mechanics watching the monitors exchanged concerned glances. Yet someone else was watching from a distance: Valentino Rossi. Not cheering, not doubting, simply studying. Quietly absorbing every lap, every slide, every questionable line. What happened next would flip the mood inside the garage. As the afternoon session began, whispers started spreading through Yamaha's technical office. Something had changed. Toprak wasn't experimenting anymore. He was attacking. Brake markers moved deeper. Lean angles grew sharper. Throttle traces smoothed out. And the once chaotic slides transformed into controlled, calculated maneuvers. Telemetry engineers, normally calm and expressionless, began leaning closer to screens with raised eyebrows. Entry speed numbers crept toward the range usually seen only from MotoGP's established frontrunners. The shift wasn't gradual. It was immediate, almost unnervingly quick. Rossi, after reviewing the internal data, finally spoke. Toprak had the aggression of Casey Stoner and the adaptability of a young Marc Marquez. Coming from a man who rarely showers praise on new riders, the words hit Yamaha like a shockwave. But the real turning point didn't happen on track. It happened in a small meeting room behind the garage, where engineers sat in silence, staring at data that had rewritten their expectations. When the technical debrief began, the room felt unusually heavy. For years, Yamaha had been searching for a reference rider, someone who could pull the bike forward the way Lorenzo once did, the way Rossi once did. Suddenly, that responsibility seemed to fall onto Toprak's shoulders. And that came with consequences. His aggressive braking highlighted weaknesses in the prototype's balance. His throttle control exposed inconsistencies in the torque curve. His feedback contradicted previous assumptions made by the development team. Some welcomed this. Others felt threatened. Within hours, Yamaha made an unexpected decision. Several engineers were instructed to fly back to Japan early with Toprak's telemetry package, recalibrating the entire V4 development plan around his style. That signaled one thing: Yamaha was preparing to rebuild its identity around him. But before they could even catch their breath, a new moment outside the garage would send a ripple through the entire paddock. Valencia's pit lane is rarely quiet, and on that afternoon it buzzed with mechanics, fuel smells, and the echo of engines winding down. Toprak stepped out of the garage for a moment of calm. And that's when he approached Dall'Igna, the mastermind behind Ducati's near-decade of dominance. A figure whose movements in the paddock always draw attention, even when he tries to hide in plain sight. The conversation wasn't staged. No cameras were positioned for drama. Yet the few who witnessed it immediately understood the magnitude. Toprak spoke first, about MotoGP's brutality, about slim margins, about the relentless pressure. He sounded like a writer who knew exactly what he was stepping into. Dall'Igna listened without expression. Then he delivered a sentence that hit harder than any rumor. You have to stay calm. Riders always want results immediately, but real success takes patience. It wasn't tactical advice. It was a psychological message, one he reserves only for riders he considers genuinely dangerous. He then added almost casually, I know you'll do well too. In an instant, social media, journalists, and team insiders erupted. If Jiggy Dall'Igna takes time to speak with a rider, that rider is officially on Ducati's radar. From the side, Irv Ponrell muttered a joke-turned headline. Breaking news: Toprak to Ducati. The paddock laughed, but no one actually dismissed the idea. Yet the most intriguing part wasn't the public moment. It was what Toprak told Yamaha afterward, something that shifted their perception of him entirely. Back inside the hospitality area, Toprak remained composed. His calmness almost seemed at odds with the explosiveness he showed on track. He described the V4 as a wild animal, but one he felt he could connect with faster than he ever expected. He spoke about electronics, rear grip, traction algorithms, and engine braking maps with surprising precision. To the Yamaha staff, this wasn't the behavior of a rider merely trying to survive MotoGP. This was the mindset of someone who wanted to mold the bike around his instincts, someone who wanted to impose his identity on the project. But underneath that confidence, Yamaha sensed something deeper. Ambition, hunger, an unspoken expectation that the factory had to match his intensity. And soon, Yamaha realized that following Toprak's path wouldn't be simple. Admiration creates pressure. Pressure creates tension. As the test progressed, subtle frustrations emerged behind the polite smiles. Some technicians feared Toprak's late-breaking obsession could mislead development priorities. Others worried that his unorthodox style might skew the V4 into a direction too extreme for other riders. There were mismatched expectations during setup changes. Occasional miscommunication over torque maps. Moments where Toprak wanted the bike to respond aggressively, while engineers wanted to tame it. The Japanese staff respected him deeply, but also felt a cautious discomfort. He was unlike any rider they had worked with in years. And then, as they processed these concerns, a new data point appeared, one that erased any lingering doubts about his potential. It happened late in the final session. The track was cooling, grip was fading, and most riders had already backed off. But Toprak rolled out one more time almost casually. What followed stunned the engineers. His brake pressure curve was not only consistent, it was elite. His corner entry speed rivaled the numbers seen from world champions. His throttle trace matched the natural rhythm of the V4 in a way even Yamaha's experienced test riders struggled to replicate. When telemetry overlays were compared internally, quiet murmurs filled the room. Toprak wasn't just adapting. He was accelerating the project. Some inside Yamaha began asking a dangerous question. If he could be this strong on day 2, what would he become after 2 months? But before Yamaha could celebrate, other factories had already begun paying attention. The moment the Valencia test ended, MotoGP's rumor machine exploded. Clips of Toprak controlling violent slides spread across social media. Fans compared him to Marquez. Analysts drew parallels to Stoner's instinctive talent. Even rival riders privately admitted they were surprised. Reporters whispered that Aprilia's strategists were studying his braking percentages. KTM personnel reportedly discussed him behind closed doors. Ducati's interest was already public after the Dall'Igna encounter. Suddenly, Toprak wasn't just Yamaha's rising star, he was a target for the entire grid. Yet through all the noise, a more personal truth began forming inside him. For the first time since joining Yamaha, Toprak felt the weight of his new position. He was becoming the center of Yamaha's future, yet the V4 project was still in its infancy. He knew the bike wasn't race-ready. He knew Ducati, KTM, and Aprilia already had stronger weapons on the grid. And he knew his window to become a MotoGP title challenger wouldn't stay open forever. The internal debate was simple but brutal. Should he stay loyal to Yamaha and help build a revolution from scratch? Or follow the path of riders who chase immediate results with proven machines? This wasn't a technical question. It was a deeply emotional one, rooted in pride, desire, and the hunger to win at the highest level. Yamaha sensed this struggle, and what they decided next would shape not just Toprak's future, but the entire V4 project. When the final day ended, the paddock believed they had witnessed a strong debut. But in truth, Valencia's test revealed something far more significant. Toprak was no longer an outsider transitioning from World SBK. He had become a central figure in MotoGP's next era. Yamaha immediately adjusted its development roadmap. Engineers reassessed torque delivery, aerodynamic load, and chassis stiffness based on his style. Meetings in Japan shifted focus toward maximizing his strengths, rather than protecting their old philosophies. At the same time, rival factories began planning how to counter a rising threat before he ever raced a Grand Prix. Toprak left the circuit quietly, but the echo of his arrival remained everywhere. Valencia wasn't a debut. It wasn't a test. It wasn't even a preview. It was a warning. Because the real story, the one that could reshape Yamaha, MotoGP, and the future of the championship, is only just beginning.